Hi guys, sorry this is a little bit later, I kind of forgot about it. So this is our video explanation for what you needed help with on this area homework. So number 4 was a parallelogram. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. You should have been doing area equals base times height. And feel free to just zoom in, fast forward to the ones that you need to see. What you have to be careful with here is picking the base and the height. We want to pick those based on where the right angle is, and the right angle is here. So this one has a number. We're definitely using 12, but there's no number on this side. So you have to really make sure you're thinking about what this side would be. It would be the same as this side, so you need to move that over. The 8 should move over there. And then those are the two numbers you're going to use, the 8 and the 12. So it's going to be 8 times 12, which is how you get 96 millimeters squared. Okay, let's look at another one from this page. Number 11. Number 11 is a triangle, so the formula is 1/2 base times height. When we're looking again for the base and the height, we're focusing in on this right angle right here. And the fact that this is on the outside, that can be the height. The height can be dotted, but what I need you to get in your head is the base cannot be dotted. So this 2 inches is dotted right now. We're not going to use that. We're only going to use the part that's solid when we're talking about the base. The height can be dotted, but the base can't be dotted. So this is going to be, we're going to use that number 2. It's going to be 1/2 of 5.5 times 7. And then you just have to calculate that out. And that's how you get 19.25 inches squared. So I think that covered the questions that we had on that front page. So let's look at the second page. On the second page, we had questions on the ones where you had to use Pythagorean theorem. So let's take a look at those. So when we look at this shape, this is definitely a trapezoid. So I know I'm doing 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height. And in this particular one, the thing that's missing right now is the height. We don't know that. So that's where I want to start first, is I'm actually going to focus in on that right triangle right here. I'm going to call this piece x, and we have to do Pythagorean theorem to find it. So it's going to be x squared plus 2 squared equals 6 squared. And then we get x squared plus 4 equals 36, which means x squared equals 32. And I think this might be the point that some of you got to, that you got confused. You can give me a decimal answer here, I'd be okay with that. So if you take the square root of 32, you get 5.65. It actually rounds up to 5.66. So we're going to make that as our x value. Then I can start to think about what I need to do to fill in the formula. It's going to be 1/2 of 1 base is definitely 11. But what I need you to be careful about, we're using that 11, is we need to figure out what this whole base is. It is not just the 2. The 2 is just a piece of that whole base. You need to make sure you bring this 11 down. That whole base would be 13. So that's 11 plus 13, and then we figured out the height is 5.66. And then that's going to be 1/2 of, let's make sure we add first, 24 times 5.66. You get that the area is 67.92 feet squared. If you wanted to leave it as a radical, I believe I gave you that option as well. But if it comes out to a decimal, I'm okay with you just changing it to a decimal and using the decimal so you don't have to work with the radical. So let's look at number 18. 18 is a little different than that one. In 18, our formula is still 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times height. This time we do know the height. That's this one in the middle. That's where the right angle is. So the height is definitely 12. And I've got one of the bases, but the problem is I don't know how long this base is. I know the piece of it is 8, but we've got to find what this other piece is. So that's actually what you need to find first with Pythagorean theorem. It's x squared plus 12 squared equals 14 squared. And it looks like this one's going to be a decimal as well. So that's plus 144 equals 196. We get x squared is equal to 52. Take the square root. If you want to leave it as a radical, you can. I'm okay with you just changing it again to a decimal. And you get 7.21 and then we're going to use that as our other piece of this side. So that whole piece is what we're going to need. That's 15.21. That's the other number we needed, is we need to know what that whole base was. So it's going to be 1/2 of 15.21 plus 8 times the height of 12. So that's 1/2 of 23.21 times 12. And then I'm just going to calculate that out on my calculator. And I get an area of 139.3 yards squared. Okay. I think there's one more on this page. Number 24 we did not like because you had to go back to the last chapter. So this is a rhombus. It says that in the directions. So the formula is going to be 1/2 d1 times d2, which means we need to first off know what this whole diagonal is. This is 7, this is going to be 7 because they're bisected in a rhombus, so that's 14. But I need you to be careful. These are not congruent on this red diagonal because it's not 45, 45 like the one I did in the notes. This is actually 30, 60, 90. So we need to think about what this side would be in the 30, 60, 90 formula. That side is going to be short leg radical 3, and this side over here is short leg. So we know the short leg is 7. That means that this side is actually 7 radical 3, and this other part would also be 7 radical 3, so the other diagonal is 14 radical 3. Now if you want to change that to a decimal, you can. I just left it. It was easier to work with. So one diagonal is 14, the other diagonal is 14 radical 3. That means that's 1/2 of 196 radical 3. And then I just left the 196, I took half of that and left the radical 3 in the problem. And you get 98 radical 3 feet squared. Again, if you want to change it to a decimal, you can, but that one's kind of easy to leave as a radical. Alright, on the last page, we had questions on these 3, so we're going to take them one at a time. So 28 and 29, please start with the formulas. So they're talking about a kite, so I'm going to write the area formula down first right away. The area formula is 1/2 diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. I'm going to fill in what I know. The area is 54. One diagonal is 18. I'm looking for the other one, so I'm going to call it x. Please make sure you actually use that 1/2 there. That's what I need you to use the formula, so the 1/2 gets used. You're taking half of 18 first, and then dividing by 9 to find your answer. You get x is equal to 6 meters. That's what the other diagonal would be. And then 29, start with the formula. That's 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times height. The area of the trapezoid is 96, and then it told me that one base is 7, but I don't know the other one, so I'm going to call it x, and the height is 8. So then I need to really be careful with my algebra here. My suggestion for where to start is you can actually multiply in any order, so I'm going to put those, the 1/2 and the 8 together first because those are numbers. So it's 96 equals 4 times 7 plus x, and then please make sure you distribute the 4. That's 96 equals 28x, or 28 plus 4x. And then I just need to finish solving that algebra equation, so I'm going to subtract 28 as my next step. I get 68 equals 4x, and then I'm dividing by 4, and that's how you get x is equal to 17 centimeters. All right, the last one we're talking about is 30. Something like this will pop up on the in-class assignment. So I just need you to pay attention to what goes where. It says the triangles are being painted red. So I'm going to just color those in right now. The triangles are being painted red. The rectangle is being painted white, but then the rest of the parallelogram is being painted yellow. And that's the key there. The rest of it is being painted yellow. So we need to pay attention to that. So the red should have been pretty easy. The red is just the triangles. But what some of you may not have thought through is what this little piece is you had to use the fact that the whole section is 14 here. That's what the 14 is measuring. And the outside section outside of the triangle is this 10, which means this has to be 4. So this should be 1/2 of 4 times 4 which is half of 16, and we get 8, but that's just one triangle and there's 2 of them. So please make sure you multiply it by 2. This should be 16 feet squared. To find the white part, that's just the rectangle. That should be easy length times width formula. The length is 4, the width is 8, or vice versa, and you get 32. The last part is the yellow part. The yellow part is not actually a shape right now. You're going to have to do the area of 2 shapes. You're going to have to do the parallelogram minus the rectangle. So the area for the parallelogram would be base times height. And the base of it is 14. And the height of it is what they drew outside over here. That's the 8. So if you multiply those together, 14 times 8, you get 112. But that's not your final answer for the yellow part. You have to take off the rectangle because it's not part of the area that's being painted yellow. It's being painted white. So take that off, and that's where 80 feet squared comes from. Then the last question was, if all of it's getting primed before you start painting it, how much primer you would need. You can actually just add up those answers from part A, and that gives you how much you need to prime it. You could also, if you wanted to, add the triangle plus the original parallelogram amount. You get the same number there, but you need to make sure you're adding only each part one time. So that's how you get 128 feet squared. Alright, I hope this video helps, and good luck on the in-class assignment.